What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and yes, GameStop is having a bad year, and I know that many of my viewers may simply ignore this video because they think, well, forget GameStop. They only offered me $1 for a game I thought was worth $30 over the year. I don't care if they close. I understand feeling that way. I've always had a different perspective of it. I've always felt like, why would I sell to GameStop when I could just sell to eBay or, sell on Amazon or Craigslist or something like that? But I get it. I get why people might not care, but I've always been nostalgic about GameStop. I still shop there. I was just at a GameStop in Gurnee Mills maybe a week ago, and met a viewer of the channel, a pretty nice person. I won't call them out specifically because I really have no idea how GameStop feels about me, and I don't want them to get in any trouble. And the message of this video is going to be pretty harsh. I think the way that they've been handling this restructure, I understand that times they are a-changin'. And even though I still like to buy my plastic case video game, in fact, when I was at GameStop last week, I bought a really cool Ghostbusters collectible that was only available at San Diego Comic-Con, and they had it for like $100 or something, and everybody on eBay was gouging and wanted $300 for it. And I also bought Astral Chain for Nintendo Switch. I know that most people can download their games. Most people just do digital, and that's cool. I understand. I like to buy the plastic case, even if it's going to, be empty and I'm just getting a download code anyway, because I like to put them on my shelf and hang out with them. I like to browse around GameStop, see what new games maybe I've forgotten about. I just like to shop in that way. I realize I'm in the minority. But this video is about GameStop management. It is about the 30,000 employees that you have across the world. Yes, news of them closing 200 more stores has been terrible. The story simply goes as follows: 200 GameStop closures planned ahead of a much larger tranche coming. I think that just means like bigger plans, bigger money. Earnings continue to tumble as company outlines ambitious turnaround trend. I don't think you're handling this right. You're on what? The third CEO in 2 years. This is the third or fourth large-scale layoff that you people at the top of GameStop have put your employees through in the past few months. Off the top of my head, the 200 stores thing. Then before that, it was all your regional managers. Then before that, it was like another 100 people back in August. And then it was like 200 people before that. There's been 2 or 3 major layoff rounds in August alone. And look, I didn't always run my own business. I didn't always spend as much time on YouTube. But I did. The number one reason I left and went out on my own is because something happened to me when I was 26 years old. I went through layoffs. I was really young, but even then, I knew, being in the room with a seasoned CEO, a good leader, in my opinion, he taught me, you cut once, you cut deep. You don't keep doing these mini layoffs every few months, because what does that do? First of all, it destroys morale. How do you think it feels to be one of your 20,000 employees, never really knowing if they're going to be a part of another wave of layoffs? You can do the work. You do the planning. I'm not saying that layoffs don't need to happen. Obviously, they do. A retraction needs to happen because the real estate that you have is expensive, and if stores are underperforming, that happens. But this way of stringing along your 20, 30,000 employees that show up for work every day is ridiculous. It's terrible, all right? It's awful management. It's short-sighted. It's showing that you don't really have a vision. That's how your employees look at it. And when I was 25, 26, and I had to lay off 60% of my staff, and I watched full-grown adult men and women bawling their eyes out, I knew that day that I would never be the same. Many families had to struggle. I gave back part of my salary just so I could keep one extra employee. And I wasn't the only leader on my team either. Shout out to Jody, JB, who also went out on her own after that and runs a very nice massage business nowadays, which my wife goes to. We both sacrificed our own pay to try and keep people on our team, keep key people. That's what good leaders do. They understand morale. They understand what good employee motivations are. What do you think a GameStop employee, which one do you think is going to do a better job for your company? The one that doesn't know if today's article is going to be yet another store closure or yet another management layoff, or the one that survives a deep cut one time and feels like, okay, we're going to be fine. That's exactly how we did it, and that's exactly how GameStop should have done it. This is ridiculous. You can't be laying more people off every 3 weeks. Imagine having to work under those conditions. Now, I've defended you, GameStop. I've defended against even my own subscribers who would be happy to see you burn to the ground. I want you to survive. I need you in that mall when my wife drags me from Express to American Eagle to, heaven forbid, what's the expensive pots and pans for Williams Sonoma. Without GameStop, what the heck am I supposed to do? There's nothing for me in the mall. And I go to GameStop, and when I've been a good little husband, I get to buy a video game. Or I get to look around and see things that I like. Now, obviously, I know you need to change your model. Okay, I get it. You can't be these Spencer Gifts, like merchandise stacked to the ceiling and hoping somebody will just buy some random junk. I get it. But what you can do is get the right leadership in place, by the way, and understand that when you have employees that have good morale, they're going to sell for you. They're going to work harder for you. They are going to come into work. They're going to feel comfortable. Sure, GameStop isn't a forever job. It's a job for a lot of people, 18 to 35. And maybe some of them will turn out to be managers one day or regional managers, and they'll be able to turn it into a career. I don't think people get a job at GameStop and expect to work there forever. However, you are in sales. I've been in sales my entire life. My first job was at an Office Max. I was one of the best salespeople they had there. I used to sell, if you're old enough, you can remember Sprint Motorola StarTech phones. I used to sell those in Palm Pilots with extended warranties on them all day long. From Office Max, I went and I worked at Best Buy. I worked at Menards. I've worked retail my entire life. I worked at an internet startup incubator where we were one of the largest retailers for Dish Network in the world, okay? I understand sales and I understand salespeople. What you're doing to your employees is crushing their morale. Sure, you have people that come in there and don't care and they just collect their pay and they come and they go. But what would you have them do? You're not giving them any future. You're not telling them that they matter, and you're not showing them that you have a clear vision. You know why? Because every few weeks, you're just laying off more people. We'll just close a couple hundred stores. What is that, 1,000 employees gone overnight? I mean, I get that stores will have to close. I get that times change. But sit. Make your plan. What you look like right now is a company desperate to get to Christmas. Desperate to get to Christmas and to that new console generation. That's not having a plan. That's called surviving. And the minute you go into survival mode, you stop growing. You stop innovating. You stop fixing problems because you're only looking at your problems, your internal problems. When you're spending all day on that, you're not taking the time that you need to reinvent your store, to listen to your employees. I know that you're not going to be able to sell a lot of PlayStation 5 games and Xbox Scarlet or whatever they're calling it, because they're not going to have any physical copies. But the Switch is still there. What about the retro market? Could you re-enter into the retro market? That's certainly really cool. Why can't I see a bunch of those arcade one-ups in your stores? Seems like those would sell really good if you had a whole wall of those set up. How about selling freaking vape stuff? Lots of gamers do that. Why aren't you selling any of that? Why is it all just blind reveal crap that nobody wants? And t-shirts with ironic phrases that I've never seen anyone buy. You have to understand what people actually want. Yes, you're going to have to change your business model. And sure, none of those things might be the fix. But certainly having your employees, which is your number one resource, okay, maybe you should be polling your employees. Maybe get their buy-in. You have how many tens of thousands of people that work for you? Maybe they have some good ideas. All I see now is herky-jerky management that's making today's cuts to survive tomorrow. And all you're doing is borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. You're not changing anything. Now, when you have this latest layoff, okay, 200 GameStops closed, and it's a much larger coming. Major gaming retailer GameStop says it will be closing between 180 and 200 stores. And we can say, I don't know how many employees a particular GameStop has. I'm guessing 4 to 5, just 1,000 employees. The statement comes following 195 store closure in the last 12 months. So that's 400 total stores. Expects to be much larger run of closures in the coming 12 and 24 months. While that might seem drastic news at first glance, even hundreds of store closures could relatively small impact on the chain with nearly 6,000 locations. And GameStop CFO Jim Bell, in a recent earnings call, said that 95% of those stores still show positive earnings, suggesting the bottom really hasn't fallen out of the chain's locations across the board. GameStop is spinning the current set of closures into an effort to optimize store portfolio through de-densification in certain markets, meaning you want to have a more, I'm assuming that means you want to have a more steady income stream and not have to rely on that 4 weeks of Christmas shopping. It's always been a bad sign. Retailers are planning on closing stores instead of opening new ones. And for GameStop, it's a sign of times after months of bad news, including major layoffs, executive departures, failed corporate sale event, cratering earnings reports, a stock price that continues to tumble. The company's latest quarterly earnings didn't include much that would suggest imminent turnaround. Losses were more than triple what they were for the same period a year ago, and sales were down 14.3%. Okay, yes, it's bad. You were too late. GameStop, again, at the very top, at the executive level, didn't see this. You know who saw this coming 5 years ago? Gamers. You know who saw this coming 5 years ago? Your 10,000 employees. Many of them knew that discs were going away. Why are you just now trying to react to the market now when it's already too late? Why isn't GameStop in the esports scene? Why aren't you having esports tournaments in your stores? Why doesn't GameStop have an esports league where people pay money to compete and you use square footage in some of your stores to host these events? These are all things that you should have been doing years ago. GameStop is spinning the current set of closures as an effort to, quote, optimize the store portfolio, blah, 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 blah. The company's latest quarterly earnings, we talked about that. As of this writing, GameStop stock was down 8.5% from Monday's closure to a price of $4. That's down over 70% from a year ago and 92% off its high in 2013. Bell admitted in the earnings call that these results that admittedly were below what would want and warned investors expect our year-over-year sales to be down over the next 3 or 4 quarters. But the company also remained hopeful that things would start to turn around late in the year. Well, yeah, because you have Christmas. They talk about their exact plan here, right? Beyond just selling games, GameStop wants to transform itself to create a social cultural hub. That means testing more try before you buy experiences, planning in-store gatherings around esports viewing, and creating other high-margin, immersive, experiential designed to bring gamers together in a physical space. Not every GameStop location will be completely remodeled by this initiative, but key locations in certain markets will be testing it. What about, when I play Magic the Gathering, I'm obviously a little, older than a lot of people that play the game, but I used to love when we would draft at the bar. The store would hold an offsite event and we would go to the bar and we would draft there. What about having tournaments or other things? Gamers still want to play video games. The most interesting pillar of their turnaround plan, though, might be its efforts to leverage its sales force into better partnerships with console makers. Our 50,000 plus knowledgeable associates at 50,000 employees remain the only full-time dedicated sales force in the game industry, highlighting how those sales associates can bring an enormous amount of value to console makers. Sherman said that Gamestop is working with console makers to create a new sales model that rewards us across the customer acquisition and lifetime value spectrum. It's all pretty vague, but it sounds like GameStop is looking for a better deal from console makers when it comes to pushing their hardware, one that perhaps reflects all those digital sales costs. Yeah, okay, fine. I think that's good. All these things are good things, and you should be trying more. But you've got to remember your number one asset is your employees, and you've got to start treating them with more respect, or you're going to be on your 4th CEO in 2 years. By the way, you can holler at your boy. I'll promise I'll treat your employees with better respect than you currently are. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Above, you'll find some links to watch more videos, as well as a nice big button to subscribe, which I hope you'll do. If you did enjoy it, make sure before you go that you leave a like and a comment on the video, because you are the #1 reason this channel continues to grow, and I appreciate you.